Welcome back to Afternoon Live. Okay, are you a type A person or are you an introvert? Our next guest says to forget all the previous personality traits you've assigned yourself and take a new quiz to determine your true character. We welcome the author of The Power of Personality, Eric G. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about this personality test and the different types of personalities. There are 16 different animals that represent us.
Right, there's 16 different personality types, and I know a lot of people, when they hear the number 16, they think of like MBTI, and it's similar to that, but the way I do it is within those 16 types, there are actually 4 larger packs. I call them packs because my personality types are animals, and each of those packs has a specific core value that motivates them, and I think that's like the big difference. Versus the introvert, extrovert, I think those kind of things are on the surface, but it's really the question is like what drives someone to do the things they do.
That's true, because a lot of us may present outwardly one way but feel differently on the inside, either sometimes or a lot of the time.
Right, a lot of people, even like the complaints a lot of people have with these personality tests are like, well, yeah, I'm introverted now, but I'm extroverted in this situation. And I'm like, yeah, of course, because it's based on context. Whereas if you have a core value, like let's say safety and security, then that's really going to dictate a lot of your actions.
So how did you develop this process and choose the animals and their packs that they go into?
So I owned an education company for about a decade. And, you know, the thing with education, it was extracurricular. So, you know, our teachers really couldn't hold grades over a kid's head. So we had to figure out a way to motivate kids. And it's pretty difficult when you can't like say, oh, I'm going to fail you in this test. So we had to figure out ways to connect with kids better. And then it just turned out that we started seeing patterns of behavior. We would work with about maybe 1,000 students a year. And we'd see like certain kids were more, would gravitate more towards like visceral excitement, sensation. They always wanted to move around versus, you know, the kids who listen and they follow the rules and, you know, they want everything organized. And that's kind of how I got to doing it. And I spent about a decade doing research and kind of testing, figuring things out. And that's where most of the ideas from the book came from.
Okay, so let's talk about the tests that folks can take online. It's really interesting. I did it earlier today. You choose different groupings of words that you connect with or represent you. So I am a peacock. Can you tell me more about what that means?
Gosh, I wish you'd let me guess.
Well, I did it among my coworkers and they were like, yeah, obviously. So it tracks.
So peacocks are really warm and friendly. They tend to like a lot of physical touch. They like to move around a lot generally. They are almost constantly moving. They're clearly performers. They like the camera to be on them and they like a lot of attention to be on them. And, you know, that can always be good and bad, right?
Yes, yes.
And that's pretty much what drives them. And it's based on like the idea of excitement. Like they just want to be excited all the time.
Okay. I'm taking it in. I'm accepting it. I'm realizing, I'm self-reflecting. We have a chart as well with all the different animal types we can show our viewers. I mean, it looks like a lot, but it's cool how you've subgrouped them off into their own categories.
Yeah, and I think that's how I kind of differ it from other tests, right? Because most tests have a very, like they give you 70 questions and people answer the same 70 questions. But for our test, it's more the first stage, you're going to have a certain set of words, but depending on the words you select, the next stage, your words will change or might be different than someone else's words if they answer differently. But I also encourage people, I mean, the book itself, I wrote it in a way where it teaches people to be the test. I'm not a huge fan of these books where you take one simple test and then the whole book is filled with prescriptions. I'm always like, well, what if you know, diagnosed yourself incorrectly, right? And then you're just using prescriptions, right? So this book is mainly based on teaching people to actually diagnose themselves properly and the people around them.
Because once you have that knowledge, both as you mentioned about yourself, and if you can recognize some traits in the people around you, you can use that knowledge as a tool and better improve your life.
Exactly. Like even something as simple as like word choice. Like we found that one of the animal types, let's say a shark, a peacock would fit into this too. They're in their big group are called hunters, the ones that seek excitement. And in working with kids, the thing that hunters are always told when they're young is to be careful. And that's one of the worst things you can tell someone of that personality type, because they get their strength or derive their strength from risk taking. So if you tone that down at an early age, by the time they become adults, they won't know how to properly take risks. So I always told teachers, just use the word concentrate. All you do is change the word. Don't say be careful, say concentrate or focus. And for some reason, they register it differently. They're like, okay, you're saying I can take risks. I just have to focus when I do.
There you go. That's so interesting. We have a couple examples of what folks will see when they enter the test as well. So you can kind of lay out how there's all these different words to select. And you really have to take a minute and reflect. I mean, I was really concentrating when I was doing this.
Did you find the words difficult to choose from, or you're like, no, I gotta like really find the ones that I
Yeah,
really
I didn't
love?
want to get the answer wrong. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
some
you
of
don't
them,
wanna
there weren't things that jumped out obviously at the beginning. So I was thinking and pausing and going, well, maybe that does make sense with my personality, or yeah, I do kind of see the world that way. Do you find that some people just dive in and click, 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 and they know their answers right away?
You know, it usually people, it depends. Some personality types are just like, they don't even care. They're just like, I'm just going to throw anything out there,
Yeah.
but they might get the wrong, type, right? And sometimes I've actually had to tell people, oh no, you're not this type, you're this type. And that doesn't always work out very
Yeah.
well. People tend to get mad. They're just like, what are you telling me? You're telling me who I am? And I'm just like, well, it's just more looking at yourself in a different way. I'm just used to doing it so much.
Yeah. So what's your type, and what does that say about you?
I am a baboon.
Oh.
Not the most flattering animal. I know a lot of people, like, oftentimes beavers don't like their type either. And I'm like, hey, don't
Interesting.
complain. Like, suck
Okay.
it up.
Yeah.
Mine is not great. But,
They're strong animals. They do a lot in nature.
and beavers or baboons?
Both.
Oh, yeah. When I think of a baboon, we think of like, I don't know, like Rafiki from The Lion King.
Yes.
Like when they really feel like they have like this idea that they're really passionate about, they'll advocate for it
Okay.
quite a bit. And they tend to focus on their voice and like communicating to people different ideas, but they might not necessarily be as extroverted when it comes to like, you get a baboon in a club and they're not going to be like dancing on the table and doing body shots.
Okay.
They're more, they
Well,
might just be
no
more your
judgment,
preacher
okay?
in the pulpit. Yeah.
We all go through phases in life. But I think that's interesting.
There's nothing
and-
wrong with that, by the way.
in your line of work and all the time and effort that you've put into this project, that kind of tracks, and then bringing the communication into it. So are these traits things that people just have instilled with them at birth, or can you kind of develop and exercise certain aspects?
I always answer, I don't know where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more important just to focus once you actually have them. And I think a lot of people ask me the same question, which is, can people change? And I don't really believe that people can change, but they can grow.
Yeah.
So we can grow into better versions of ourselves or worse versions of ourselves based on our environment and the way we react to it. And I always say puppies don't grow into cats, they grow into dogs.
There
right?
you
So,
go.
yeah, people might, even if someone seems like they're changing, maybe our perspective of them has just changed based on new information, which is great. I'm not really a big fan of certainty. I'm more just, this is a method, and maybe do it for the rest of your life. Just constantly find more and more new information about the people around you, including yourself, and that'll only make your life better.
Yeah, it's a great way to grow inward, and yeah, that's a big existential question. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great chatting with
Thank you so much. It's great
We'll
chatting
have-
you as well.
Thank you. We'll have more information on our website at ka2u.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.